So how's it going, my Comicchatauthority? We're here today with Doug Wagner, the creator of Plastic Vinyl, um, Click Click Boom. I just drew a blank once when
Plush, uh,
plush. Yeah, thank you.
Red Eye Voden. We got quite a few on the list there.
So how did you get your start in comics?
Oh man, that's a long story. I mean, I started like, believe it or not, I actually went to high school with Cully Hamner, who's been working for DC Comics, Marvel Comics for the past 40 years. And we went to high school together, and we were just kind of like goofing off and met each other in school and started creating our own comics. And I was just doing it for fun for a while, and then it kind of like dawned on me, like, hey, I think this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And so then it became this, as is typical with writers, a long pursuit of like learning how to write and going through all the rejection and all that kind of stuff. Got my first break with Malibu Comics back in the day, before Marvel bought them out and shut them down. And then it took me a couple of more years, and then Kevin Gardner, who's the president of 12 Gauge Comics, and I kind of started 12 Gauge Comics together and decided we wanted to do our own comics. And that started with The Ride, which had Cully in it, and Brian Stelfreeze and Jason Pearson and quite a few other big name guys at the time. And that just kind of got my path started on doing creator owned comics. And since that, I think, which was 2004, I've been doing Image Comics since, pretty much, and obviously, delving into other stuff like we were talking about the NFL stuff. And I've done some stuff for Marvel and DC and some other people, but, mostly just creator owned books.
Are you working on anything right now to expand the plastic multiverse? What is it? Plastic verse.
Yeah, the Plastic Verse. Yeah. Well, we just finished up Plastic Death and Dolls, which number 5 just came out a couple of weeks ago. And then Daniel and of course are always working on something new. And so I can't talk too much about it, but next April, through Image will be our next miniseries, which will be placed in the Plastic Verse.
Hell yeah. I like your plastic verse. I first found you through Plush.
Oh, thanks.
And yeah, I was reading it, and then I let a few coworkers read it and some neighbors. Yeah.
Now you've been banned by the HOA.
Yep. So what else did you do for Warner Brothers?
Oh, for Warner Brothers. Wow. I mean, for about 10 years, I worked for what they called DC Custom at the time. And that was basically DC, all these other companies like the NFL job you and I were talking about earlier, like NFL, Blizzard, everything you saw online went through DC Custom. And so there for a couple of years, I was working for the Arrow TV show doing custom comics for the online, Flash, Person of Interest. Obviously, the Blizzard World of Warcraft stuff I did. I also did some Batman stuff through them for like Arkham Origins and that kind of stuff. So there's like a laundry list of stuff that I did for DC Custom Warner Brothers back in the day for about, like I said, it was for a full decade.
Do you do comics full time now?
Oh yeah, yep. That's all I do now, just comics.
Do you do any work for hire?
Oh yeah, yep. Doing a couple of work for hires. Of course, I can't talk too much, but like
Right.
doing a couple of work for hire stuff right now. But I like to keep a good balance if I can, because work for hire pays you. Creator owned is you got to make money on the back end after the book comes out. So it's like you want to try to keep that balance so you keep paying your bills. But yeah, I try to keep a good balance.
Do you have any Comic Cons planned this year?
Oh yeah, well let's see. We just got finished with Wasatch Comic Con, which is a nice little show here in Salt Lake City. And it's always a great little show. I always recommend it to everybody. It doesn't seem like it's a big show, but everybody that goes to it's like, wow, I make more money at this show than I do at some of the big ones. So for next year, for sure, I'm planning on Emerald City Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, Heroes Comic Con, and FanX in Salt Lake, as well as Wasatch Comic Con again.
Okay. What advice would you give to new creators out there?
But I think the biggest, I run into two different things here because, I actually used to teach comics, believe it or not, for a couple of years at Broadview Entertainment Arts University. And the things I've kind of learned over the time is there's usually two things that I think. Number one is learn to finish. There's so many people that start a comic and never finish it, or they start a script, or they start a story, or, for artists, they start a page and they never actually finish it. Learn to finish. It's harder than it sounds. Number two is just get it out there. You don't need permission from a publisher anymore. Don't chase the validation of having an eye on, an image eye on your book or whatever. Hey, that's great if you can make it happen. But in this day and age, like you can do a comic book for free online now, like tomorrow. You can post it tomorrow. And my trick, my one piece of advice is like, don't wait for somebody to pay you. Don't wait for somebody to like put their stamp on your book or say you're good enough or any of those kind of things. The advantage you have nowadays is the internet, and you can start doing your comic right this second.
And Kickstarter too,
Oh yeah, I mean Kickstarter is another way. Like, hey,
Mhm.
if you need some money and you need to do it that way, like Kickstarter is becoming. I think Philip Sablik from like the New Ignition Press. I think I read an article the other day where he said like Kickstarter and Patreon and those kind of avenues are now make up almost a third of the market. So yeah,
Wow.
there's definitely like a way to go now.
Yeah, I think they got other ones now, Zoop and all these other small ones, but I think Kickstarter is going to stay on top for a while.
Oh yeah, they seem to still be the number one driver of that kind of funding.
Um, do you still teach comics?
Oh, not like at a university kind of thing. I mean, I still have a couple people that reach out, and every now and then I'll take somebody under my wing and kind of like kind of give them at least the basics of how comics work and storytelling and those kind of things. But not as far as a paid gig. No.
Who's some up and coming talent that we should be watching out for?
Oh man, that's always a. I mean, when I talk about talent, it's all over the place. So like Becca Lee Gardner is a novelist, and she's done some really cool. Like she did some stuff, some fantasy books. She's now got like her kind of like young adult children's books called Men the Mighty, and she's got a
Mm.
7 book set of those, and those are going to be amazing. Like people should check those out if you've got kids. Like they're going to love them. Up and coming talent, man, it's all over the place. Like obviously, I've worked with Doug Dabbs, Tim Odland, Daniel Hilliard, who always works on all this stuff. I don't know if he's a young talent. We've been working together for a decade, but those 3 guys, I love their work, and everybody should have their eyes open for them. Man, there's just so many. I mean, just go look at Image Comics and Boom and Dark Horse and IDW. They've got so much great young talent coming up now.
Yeah, I like the art that Danielle does with your plastic verse.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it, it needs to be animated.
Oh thanks. Yeah.
I think it would look so. I think it would fit perfect as like a Cartoon Network show.
Yeah, and then I think Invincible's kind of carved the path there too. Like, hey, you can do adult level content now, and it doesn't have to be like sex and all that stuff, but you can do adult level violence now in America, and Invincible's kind of paved the path for that.
Hmm. I'm thinking, kind of nervous talking to you.
I'm
Yeah,
nervous.
yeah,
I'm just another
um,
person.
yeah. Um, the plastic verse books, is they
Mhm.
all connected in some way?
Oh yeah, I mean they're all in the same universe, but you don't have to read one to understand any of the other ones. So like they all stand alone, but we do like to throw Easter eggs in there. So like if you've read Vinyl, if you're paying attention, like they're referring to Edwin and Virginia at one point, and so there's like fun stuff we like to throw in Easter egg wise. But it was really important to us. We wanted to keep them standalone because I always hate that like sometimes like hey if somebody wanted to start on Batman and they're brand new to comics, where would you start? Like where do you start? There's some great like Killing Joke, Court of Owls, those kind of things, but still, like, it's not the beginning, right? And I always kind of wanted to be able to say, hey, listen, if you're not into cannibalistic furries, I also have I also have a serial killer book over here. If you're into dark comedy horror, we've got stuff, and you don't have to read one to necessarily understand any of the other ones. And so it was real important for us to make sure that we kept it that way.
Oh, dead or alive, who would you want to make a comic book with? Or is there somebody out there that you didn't get a chance to work with?
Oh man, there's so many. Like there really is. Like I mean, that list is pretty endless. I would, I mean, Jason Pearson was a good friend of mine since I was like 20 years old, and so I would have loved to have gotten a chance to work with him one more time before he passed. And of course, there's all the guys, Adam Hughes and Brian Stelfreeze and Cully Hamner, and the list goes on and on of all those people that I'd still love to work with. Um, and then there's the weird ones that I don't know necessarily personally, but I'd love to see what we could do on a book. So, just like seeing what Peach Momoko does. I mean, obviously she's a huge hit, but at the same time, like it's so different than the art you normally see in a book. I'd
Mhm.
love to see what we would do together. Always been a huge fan of Sean Gordon Murphy's work. I mean, he's brilliant in every way. Jorge Corona, love his work. So there's like I said, I could sit here and talk for 30 minutes on the people that are doing comics now that I love, that I'd love to work with. And I mean, that's just because I love comics. And there's so many
Mhm.
great artists and writers out there that like I would be blessed to get the chance to work with them.
Are you reading any comic books now? Weekly
Yeah,
books?
I mean, I've got a stack like this. Of course, I think everybody has their, my monthly stacks like this, and I'm so far behind. Napalm Lullaby, I absolutely love. That's Rick Remender and Bengal from It's an Image book. Really digging that one. Nail for a while was a good one. Of course, I like Nail Biter and Ice Cream Man are both two of my favorite books to follow. Picked up I'm picking up the Absolute stuff, but I haven't had a chance to dig in yet. So I've got them, and they're kind of like itching for me to pull them out of the wrappers, and I'm like, oh. Still, Stand Still by Andrew Robinson is another one right now that I'm really digging. This from Image.
I'm gonna have to check these out.
Yeah, just amazing. Like he's breaking all the rules on what you're supposed to do on a comic book page. And I love that. You're like, hey, wait a minute, you're not doing this the way I think that we've all been taught. And so anytime anybody's doing that, I love it. Like that's what I love about Jorge Corona stuff and the stuff he and Scotty Young do together is Jorge's like his layouts are always like, how come I didn't think about that? Like this is like these are amazing. So yeah, those are kind of the books I'm kind of digging in at the moment anyway.
Yeah, I think Scott Snyder is doing awesome things with the Absolute universe.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. Everybody's talking really great about it. I wish I had time to have read it before we got on here. But yeah, I mean, Scott Snyder's, he's always done great work. So
yeah, DC was frustrating me there for a little while because they would have like a 5-book run. They build up to this big battle at issue 5, and it would just end it off page. It's like, oh, happy ending, everybody. It's good to go. Here it is. Yep, they was doing that a lot with Dawn of DC.
Yeah.
Now it was just frustrating me. They did it with Jay Garrick, Flash.
Yeah.
I want to say Sandman, and there was another one that they did it. Just you didn't even get to see the battle. Built up 4 issues for this big battle just to.
I mean, that's like having the MCU and not doing Endgame.
Right? Yeah.
Wait a minute, we came here to see that.
Mm-hmm. What social medias are you on nowadays?
I'm currently still on like X or Twitter or whatever they call it. Although I'm considering jumping over to Blue Sky. I do LinkedIn, which is surprisingly like I get a lot of action on LinkedIn. Just for like follows and likes and that kind of stuff. And then Facebook and Instagram.
What is Blue Sky?
Blue Sky is like it's going to be. It was created by the same guys that were one of the founders of Twitter. And so Blue Sky is going to kind of be, I think, like right now they're kind of the competitor for Twitter. And it's very similar in the way that both of them function, but it's a little bit more like old Twitter versus new Twitter. And so I think you're seeing a lot of people, especially artists, jump over to there because I think the algorithms are a little bit more friendly. You actually see what your friends are posting. So,
Yeah.
The whole point of being on social media,
It seems like everything that I do on Twitter, it costs.
Yeah.
They want you to pay for this or pay for that.
Yeah. I mean, once, Elon Musk kind of took over and wanted to kind of turn it into a more, to make money, which Twitter was making money before, but, his new avenue of doing it was like, hey, we want the users to pay for everything. And I'm like, why would I pay for everything when there's all these other free ones? So
yeah. You don't do TikTok or nothing?
No, I've kind of I'm not one of those guys that likes to be on camera. So, it's tough for me to like I don't even usually post pictures of myself, so much less like do a video of myself. And I'm not a good dancer. So I figured TikTok's probably not for me.
Yeah, we tried TikTok. No, the indie comic thing just doesn't work on there.
Yeah.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's see.
Well, tell me again where you are in Florida.
I'm down here in Cape Coral.
Okay, Cape Coral. Yeah, so I'm originally from Fort Pierce. That's where I was born. So right down the street, and now I'm way out in the mountains of Utah, which I absolutely love because I don't miss humidity or the threat of hurricanes.
Yeah. So why did you move all the way out there?
Honestly, I mean, I grew up. My dad was I grew up moving a lot. My dad was in the Army. When I was a kid, we moved all over the place, and so I was all over the South. And I just kept moving and moving around until I finally found somewhere I really loved. And strangely as it sounds, Utah and the mountains in Utah, I just love it out here. I love the change of seasons, those kind of things. It's just I don't know. I love it.
Yeah, about this time next year, we're going to move up or try to move up to North Carolina.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I got some friends that
Yeah,
live in Charlotte. So,
it's just getting too expensive down here to live. And you know, I got a young family and it's not really much to do for young people.
that's a shame. Yeah.
It's too damn hot to do anything outside.
Yeah, during the summers, I don't miss those. Yep, not at all.
Yeah, and like you said, the hurricanes, they just seem to
Mhm.
be getting worse and worse and worse. Kind of happened so quick. I never thought I'd have the chance to talk to you. um,
Well, I'm thrilled to have you on here or be on here. So that's fantastic. And I don't meet a lot of people that necessarily start out with plush. Usually it's
yeah,
like plastic or vinyl, and so it's kind of cool that like you start out with plush and that didn't scare you away. So
yeah. Once when I read plush, I was like, yes, I need more of this. And then I got the trade of plastic, and then Deaf and Dolls came out soon
mm,
after I finished plastic. So
yeah,
I'm just
Daniel,
waiting.
we just keep having fun doing that plastic verse serial killers and our dark
Mm.
comedy, weird sense of humor horror books.
So, do you have a favorite serial killer?
Oh, you mean like a real world serial killer
Yeah,
or yeah,
yeah,
probably it's weird to say favorite, right? Because it's like these are
yeah.
horrible, horrible people. But oh man, yeah, off the top of my head, no. There's a lot of interesting ones. I mean, it's because I did a deep dive into like figuring out the types of serial killers because there's apparently three types and we have no idea how many there are at any state day and because apparently there's one they're right now hunting as a truck driver and he keeps showing up in Alaska and they've kind of narrowed it down because they're using his phone to kind of ping him, but I think he figured it out. And so it's just really crazy. Like they think he's probably been in operation for 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And you're just
Um,
like, wow. It's just like, yeah. So I mean the whole serial killer thing is, so fascinating to me.
yeah. I watched a interrogation video. Dude did the perfect crime. Everything was good. He was going to get away with it. But somewhere in the middle of the night, he put his phone on airplane mode for like 8 hours, and that's what got him.
Oh wow.
Yeah, if he would have just kept his phone at home, he probably would have got away with it.
Yeah.
I don't, people don't think about it. You know, our phones is either in our hand, back pocket, or within arm's reach of somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you mix that into and obviously, if you read our books, Daniel and I love old horror films too. So, like, where
Hmm.
that's about, so like all that, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Freddy and Jason and Michael Myers and all those stuff. Like, I love those guys mostly because they're fictional and I don't have to worry about them. But
Do you think we'll ever have another golden age of horror like in the 80s?
I think we will. Yeah, I mean, right now the horror's doing. I mean, in Hollywood right now, horror's really hot, mostly because it's cheap and easy to make.
Mm.
They almost always make their money back. So, you don't get a lot of that in Hollywood where it's almost a guaranteed like, hey, we're gonna get our money back on these movies. But you're seeing a pretty good age of horror right now. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily as big as what you're talking about, like those guys. But like when you start looking, I mean, horror films are constantly coming out, and I think I'd like to see us do a little bit more of that Michael Myers, Jason kind of stuff. But at the same time, you're getting stuff from like Peel that's just like
Hmm.
fun and smile and these really like really up upper tier level horror films now.
I'm starting to see a lot of the jump scare movies, you know? Like instead of it being like serial killers or a ghost, it's everything just jumping out at you, or you got that intense building suspense, and then I think it's I don't know, I don't like that too much.
Yeah, I'm definitely more the psychological thriller kind of guy. Like Alien and I think the early ones we're talking about, like the first couple of Michael, the first Halloween or the first Freddy or the first
Hmm.
uh, you what's the other one? Friday the 13th. They had murder scenes in them, but they weren't quite as gory as they kind of have continued to grow to be. And I'm not like the gore fest kind of guy. I like the more psychological kind of stuff that just like scares you of what might happen versus like you don't have to show me all the blood and guts in the world. It's just like just show me stabbing somebody, show them stabbing somebody, and I get the idea.
Yeah,
But that's my taste.
Freddy always scared me because everybody has to go to sleep, you know?
Yeah.
If you don't go to the camp and have sex, he's not going to get you. If you're not a family member, he's not going to get you.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if you don't live in that one town, that one ghost face killer's not going to get you. So
Hmm. Yeah.
everybody's got to go to sleep.
Everybody's got to go to sleep, and yeah, and every time they, every movie they killed Freddy, and then he was back because you can't kill a
Hmm.
dream, So yeah, he
Yeah.
was definitely horrifying.
And Robert Englund just got better with age too.
Yeah, and I feel the same way about Chucky. Like Chucky's like, like
Yeah.
having a little male doll chasing you around terrifies me.
Have you seen the most recent Chucky's?
Oh yeah,
They've gotten strange.
oh yeah. I mean, but that kind of leans into, like, you remember that we had that stuff that was like Troll and Leprechaun, and those movies were just like weird, but everybody loved them. Like, so I don't mind
Hmm.
Chucky going super weird because I think that's kind of like it was weird to begin with. So like, yeah, it's fine. Like, go as weird as you want.
And that Jack Frost movie.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that one was pretty good when I was younger. Remember getting it at Blockbuster.
yeah.
Yeah, they had the lenticular case. It was like a snowman. Then you turn it, and it was like all evil and demonic. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
No, dude, I just thank you so much for having me on here, and it's been a pleasure, like, being on here, and it's great meeting you.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate you doing this.
That's my pleasure.
What? You mean you haven't subscribed to Comic Chat Authority? Oh, come on, subscribe already. What are you waiting for? It's no big deal. Like, man, don't forget to tell him to hit that like button. Yeah, that too. Just subscribe.